Hey plant friends, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. My name is Annalise and this is my channel where we get planty with it. Today I wanted to do a video on the main things I wish I had known when I started my plant journey about a year and a half ago now. I've seen other plant YouTubers do this and it looked like fun, so I thought if I could write a letter to myself a year and a half ago with some advice about collecting plants, what would I say? So if you want to hear the things I would tell my younger, pre-crazy plant lady self, then definitely stick around. So number one would be you don't have to buy every plant. When I started out my plant journey, anytime I saw a new plant that I didn't have, regardless of whether I really liked it or not, or knew that I could meet its care needs, I ended up buying it just because I wanted to build my collection as quickly as possible. Now looking back, that ended up being a lot of plants that I kind of let die or just didn't care about and ended up giving away. I wish I had thought a little bit more about the plants I was buying back then and really only bought plants that I thought were really exciting and that I loved and knew that I'd want to keep in my collection. Obviously in the beginning, it is a little bit hard to know what kind of plants you're gonna love and what you're not gonna love. So there's gonna be some experimentation. There's gonna be some plants you get that you end up not loving as much as you want, and that's totally normal. But I mean, I would literally pick out any plant and be like, I don't really like how this looks, but I don't have it, so I might as well get it, which doesn't really make sense. So that would be my first tip. Don't buy every plant you see just because you don't have it. Especially with crazy plant collectors like myself, you will amass a lot of plants over time, so it's better to amass ones that you really, really like, really enjoy, and that are gonna bring joy to you in your home. Next, kind of in a similar vein, you don't need to buy a ton of plants at once. I know there was a phase where I was getting like plant shipments 2 to 3 times per week. It was kind of during the pandemic that I started collecting, so I wasn't really able to shop in person. So the solution was shopping on Etsy, shopping on different websites to purchase plants, and I had orders coming in constantly. It was very exciting at the time. Obviously getting a new plant in the mail, unboxing it was really exciting, especially in a time that was really challenging for a lot of people with the pandemic. But it quickly got overwhelming. When I would have an order of 7 new plants arrive and I had no idea how to care for them, it was a lot of trial and error and figuring things out, and it was hard to make sure that all my plants were doing well. So I would really recommend buying less plants at one time, maybe slow down, buy 1 new plant at a time instead of making big crazy orders, so you can really focus on that one plant and learn the care needs of it before you get more plants. So yeah, those first two kind of go hand in hand, not buying every plant you see just because you see it, and also not buying a million plants at once that ends up overwhelming you and you can't take care of them, you don't know what to do with them, and they end up dying anyway. So number 3 is moving on to my advice about rare plants. So first thing, I thought that to be a great plant collector, it was really important to have a ton of rare plants in your collection. I know when I started watching plant YouTubers, I was always so impressed with their collections and so jealous and thinking about, I wish I could have that plant, I wish I could have this plant. But of course, when I looked them up online, the prices were astronomically high, especially during the pandemic. And I felt like, am I really a plant collector if I don't have rare plants? The reason it took me so long to start my YouTube channel, because I wanted to start it at least 6 months to 8 months before I ended up doing it, is because I thought my collection's not cool enough. I don't have like cool plants that compare to other plant YouTubers who have tons and tons of really rare plants and unicorn plants in their collection. And I thought, who would care about seeing my collection when it's a lot of kind of more regular plants? And I think that's just a misconception. I think you can be in the plant community, you can be a plant collector with literally any type of plants. They don't have to be rare, they don't have to be unique. If you like them and you're excited about your plants and you're passionate about plants in general, you're a plant collector. That's all that matters. So I think if I could go back, I would remind myself, I don't need to get rare plants just to like have rare plants so I'm a better collector. And I don't need to get rare plants that are just a fad that I don't really care about. Obviously, I did end up getting some rare plants over the past year or so, but it was important to me to make sure the rare plants I was getting was ones I actually wanted and not just, oh my God, everyone has this rare plant. This is the cool new rare plant. Let me make sure that I get it so I'm cool or whatever, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling. In the beginning, I really felt insecure about my plant collection and insecure about starting a YouTube because I really thought no one would care about my plants because a lot of them are really regular. I mean, you can see behind me here, a lot of these guys are really common household plants. It's a heartleaf philodendron, a micans behind me, a Syndapsis pictus argyrius, and just a regular monstera over there. So I felt like, oh my gosh, is that even interesting to people? But people who love plants. They don't just love rare plants, they love plants. So basically, long story short, you don't need to have rare plants to be a plant collector. Speaking of rare plants, I wish I could tell myself, just freaking wait. You don't have to buy every plant the minute you see it and fall in love with it and add it to your wish list. I know there were a lot of times where I added a new plant to my wish list. I would be on the hunt immediately for the best price I could find and really wanted to get that rare plant as soon as possible. especially during the pandemic when prices were insane. I really wish for some of the plants that I did end up purchasing, I had just waited, because now prices have gone down so much. For instance, when I first started collecting, some really popular rare-ish plants were the gloriosum, the philodendron gloriosum, and the philodendron melanochrysum. The prices of those plants have gone down so much at this point, and if I had just waited, I could have saved money. So now, looking back, reflecting on my past, I don't want to call it a mistake because I learned from it, but reflecting on my past experience, now when I see a rare plant that I want, I really try to hold out and wait and see if maybe down the road I can make a trade with somebody, or maybe down the road the price will drop and become way more affordable. So something to think about. You don't need to buy the plant in the moment, even though there's that little bit of hype and addiction to finding the perfect plant, searching on eBay, bidding on the plant, being in Facebook groups. You don't need to buy it in that moment. You can always wait and you'll find it later. So next up, when I first started my plant journey, I got super into plant YouTube. I was watching plant videos for hours a day just because I loved seeing plants and hearing about how people take care of them and learning more about plants in general. And I think one thing that I wish I had known a little bit earlier was everybody's plant experience is different and everybody's plants are different. So I would take a lot of advice I'd see online kind of word for word and be like, okay, this is exactly how I have to treat my plant. This person waters this plant once per week, so that's what I have to do. This person has this plant in this type of planter, so that's what I have to do. And looking back, that's not true. Yes, advice can be very, very helpful, especially when you're still getting comfortable with plants, but you have to remember the person who's giving the advice is in a completely different environment than you are. Maybe they're in a different zone, their home has different humidity levels, they have different light levels and light intensity, so you have to take all kinds of advice with a grain of salt. So I think I wish I had kind of trusted my own intuition more at first, because there were definitely moments where I thought I should do something with a plant, but I was reading online what the solution to my problem was, and I would go with that instead of kind of going with my gut. So I think, remember, you're the expert on your plants. You know what your plants need and like. Obviously, advice is super helpful. Care videos are super helpful for kind of getting an overview of plant needs, but trust your gut, trust your intuition. You know your plant collection the best. You know your home environment the best, and you're probably going to be the best plant parent for your plants. Okay, last but not least, plants are supposed to be fun, not stressful. I think a lot of people get into plants as a hobby, not so much as a job or some chore. You want it to be fun. And for a lot of people, I know it was a great coping mechanism during the pandemic. So you want to keep plants as this relaxing, fun hobby and not let it get to the point where it's getting stressful. So I've seen a lot of YouTubers recently post videos on plant burnout. Two of the ones I watched were Harley G and by Tate's Plants, and they both had some great insight and advice for what to do when you're feeling plant burnout. So obviously, I think that's a normal experience for plant parents. But overall, if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed with your collection at all times, I think it's important to remember it's okay to let go of plants. I used to feel so guilty about letting go of plants, especially throwing away plants. If I could rehome a plant or find someone who wanted it or find a trade, that was one thing. But if I had a plant that was dying, I couldn't let it go, and I'd convinced myself I had to keep trying. I couldn't give up on a plant. But sometimes it's it's okay. The plant's not gonna make it. It's not on you. You can move on. It was causing me more stress to try to keep these dying plants alive, and so just let it go. Throw it out. It's okay. There's more plants. You can get more plants. If down the road you're super upset about missing that plant, you can probably replace it. So I think I would try to cut myself a little slack, remind myself your plants don't have to be perfect. It's a hobby. It's fun. It's not about being the best at everything and having everything perfect. So I think that's just a little reminder. I have to remind myself of that even now, because I have plants that I'm I really don't like this plant. I wish I didn't have this plant. And so I force myself to try to take care of it and try to have it do well. And so I do need to get better about clearing out my collection of plants that I'm not in love with, finding new homes, or if I can't, just letting them go and being okay with that. And if you really have trouble throwing things away, but your plant is not in great enough condition to sell or trade, maybe in your area, in your community, there's somewhere you could just kind of leave a plant and say free plant, and somebody else might want a rehab project or love that plant and want to take it in. So that's another option if you really struggle with throwing plants out, much like myself. Okay, that's gonna be it for today. I wanna hear from you guys. What was some advice, if you could go back in time to the start of your plant journey, what do you wish you could tell yourself if you were starting over now? Or to new plant collectors who may be watching or reading comments, what advice would you give them? Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I'll see you next time. Bye.